Glad to see all of you here today. And I have to tell you, I have been in a forgetful mode. I won't tell you all the things I've already forgotten today, or they'll take the whole class. But among them, I forgot to move my slides up to the part we are on today. So I'm going to be doing that right here just very quickly as we are looking at some things. We have been in the Beatitudes, and we covered all these things that you're seeing flying by up here the last couple of weeks. Last week we talked about the pure in heart and the peacemakers. And I think that's where we ended last week, was with the peacemakers. And so today we're going to start here with those who are doing right. We are in Matthew chapter 5. We're beginning as a part of our study of the life of Christ, the life of Jesus. We are also now in that special little section, the Sermon on the Mount, and in the midst of the Beatitudes, which we ought to finish up here actually today. Let's go back and read this entire little section, which is Matthew 5, 1 through, well, it actually goes through about verse 12. Let's just go through verse 10, and we will get verse 11 and 12 when we come to them. It says, "And seeing the multitude, he went up into the mountain, and when he had sat down, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are they that have been persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." I will do one thing as far as a review, is that we talked about a couple of weeks ago the word blessed. And now sometimes I say blessed. That's just the way I was raised up to pronounce the word that way. But either way you want to say it, blessed or blessed, is a very wonderful word. We are truly blessed if we do these things. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, you know, some use the term happy. You know, you're happy if you will do these things, and that's true. It'll give you a happy life. But as I was looking into the Greek and everything, I like the phrase that it had there, divine favor. You receive divine favor. You receive something from God if you do these things. It's a godly blessing. It's not just something that happens. It's something that God does give you along the way. So all these things that we're looking at. So today we're starting with the idea that you receive this divine favor if you've been persecuted for righteousness' sake. He says, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. You know, these disciples needed to be prepared for persecution. It was coming, wasn't it? You know, before Jesus come along, four of them, they were just out on their fishing boats and catching the fish and bringing them in. Matthew was out collecting the taxes from the people, and the others, whatever their occupation was, they were doing their thing from day to day and just living a regular, what you and I might call a normal life. Everything was going well. But they're already seeing at this point in time that the Pharisees are not happy with the things that Jesus is doing. The main thing that was just really irritating them was all this healing he was doing on the Sabbath day. And to them, he was violating Sabbath day law. We saw that actually he wasn't. But in their Pharisaical views, he was. And so they had all of this that they were dealing with along the way. So Jesus is already getting some threats, so to speak. And as he continues on, he's going to be persecuted. And as they continue to follow him, what's going to happen to them? They're going to be persecuted. And you know, and after Jesus dies, is resurrected, sends back to heaven, then we get in the book of Acts, and that's what we see right there in the very get-go. Peter and John doing all the things that they're doing in the early chapters of Acts, and they keep bringing them back to jail, and they keep, they give them a whipping, so to speak, and all these things, and more threats, and Christians are put into prisons, and Stephen is stoned to death. And so all these things are taking place. They needed to be prepared for this persecution that was coming their way. So Jesus was persecuted not because he'd done evil and bad things. He was persecuted because he was doing good things. Peter says in 1 Peter 3, verse 17, "For it is better, if it is the will of God, to suffer for doing good than for doing evil." If we suffer because we've done something evil, it's sort of you getting what you deserve. Is that too harsh of a statement? Something you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, and it figuratively blows up in your face, then you should have expected that. But I'm doing the right things. I'm doing what God wants me to do. And I'm trying to follow Him, and I'm praying to Him constantly, and I'm reading from His Word, and I'm doing all these things. And these bad things are still happening to me. People are mistreating me and wanting to put me in jail and do all these kinds of things. Peter says that it's for the better if you suffer for doing that good than doing evil, because it does take place. Your thoughts here? Right. This was toward the end of his ministry. The servant is not greater than the master. If they hate me, they're going to hate you too, because you're doing what I tell you to do. It's basically what he told them.
Jesus is not for the faint of heart.
Okay.
You're going to have to be strong.
It's not for the faint of heart. You got to be strong. I'm just making sure everybody hears what we're saying up here. And that's true.
1 Peter 4, verse 12 says, "Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which will try you." So he goes on to talk about you're going to be tested, things are going to happen to you because you are, says, rejoice in as much as you are partakers of Christ's sufferings.
Yes. And in 1 Peter is a good book to read about this very topic too, because he's writing to people who are being persecuted, but he's telling them it's about to get worse. If you think some bad things are happening to you now, it's about to get worse, and he's trying to prepare them for the things. You're going to have to strengthen yourself up and be prepared for the persecution.
We lived in a country and in a time when we didn't get persecuted for preaching the gospel, for doing what Jesus said, but that could change very rapidly.
That could. No one's ever told me they're going to put me in jail for doing what I do up here, or put us in jail for being here today, or to take us out and stone us or anything like that.
That's on the government level. If you're living a good Christian life, or at least trying to, you're going to have people, that will somewhat harass you, ridicule you.
Yeah.
Especially if you're younger.
Okay. Mike, I'm not blowing you off, but we're going to go to verse 11, because it's really talking about what you're saying here. Verse 11 says, "Blessed are ye when men shall reproach you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake." And so, the last verse talked about being persecuted. This is people who have been driven from home. Think about Acts chapter 8, the first few verses. They had to leave their homes and their goods, or they were going to die. People who've been beaten, who've been stoned, who've been put in prison, who have been put to death. Now, in this verse, he talks about persecution there too, but he also adds the word reproached, or your version may say reviled. And that is someone who is mocked, who is laughed at, being called a fool, or you're just treated terribly because of your Christianity. Do you see the difference here? It's not so much that we're going to be physically attacked or anything like that, but we, because we're Christians, we're hateful people. Did you know that? Have you been told that? You are just hateful. I've had some people tell me directly, I'm hateful because the Bible teaches that homosexuality is a sin. If you live as a homosexuality, you're going to die in your sins. You're going to be lost. Oh, that's hateful. You are a hateful person. No, I'm just telling you what the Bible says. I love that person. I'm trying to warn them so they won't die like that. That's what we're doing. But what the world is going to do, they're not going to hear any part of that. They're going to mock at us for that. We're the foolish ones. We don't know what we're talking about. And we're just cruel, terrible people. And that's what there was a time if somebody didn't really want to practice Christianity, it was sort of like, if you want to live your Christian beliefs, that's fine. I respect that, and I'm going to go do my thing. But we got more and more is, I don't want you doing that. I want you to quit doing that. You're just so foolish in being a Christian. And so they just want to kind of nag on you a little bit to maybe see if they can talk you out of it along the way.
In our society today, it's come along in the last 20 years that our society is attacking Christianity
Yes.
as a whole. But I can remember growing up being mocked and laughed at because of what my belief was.
Yes.
Or you're judging. You're judgmental.
That this used to be the thing, yeah. Mm-hmm. We're judgmental people. Exactly.
But all I'm doing is repeating this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you get. And if you really that's a lot of times that's the feedback you get. Is you'll be wrong.
Yes.
You know you're getting it right.
We got to go with what Peter said. We ought to obey God rather than man. That's what we got to do. And Mike's right. I mean, there was some of this back in the day, but I think it's more prominent now. It's a growing thing. I like something I've heard James say several times about the pendulum. He's waiting for the pendulum to go start swinging the other way. And we keep praying about it. Maybe we can get it swinging the other way. But you got that going on out there. And yeah, that was another part. You're judgmental. You are a judgmental people. Oh, well, we're just going by what the Bible says. In this verse, this is in 12. And what did I put? I put it on the wrong slide, I guess. But remember how the prophets were treated. And so let me go ahead and read 12. It says, "Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you." Remember, Jesus is speaking to some disciples that really had not had to put up with this stuff yet. It was just on the beginning time that these things were starting to happen to them. And so he's trying to prepare them. You're going to receive some divine favor if you can hold up through these things that are coming your way. He said, now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, think about what happened to the prophets. Think about what happened to Jeremiah. Think about what happened to Elijah and Elisha and all these different prophets that they knew about from Old Testament days. Think about the struggles that they went through. You're about to go through some of that same stuff. Be prepared. Be ready for it. No matter how bad your life may be, no matter how bad people may treat you, heaven is going to be worth it. That's another point he makes there in verse 12. No matter how bad it gets, I don't know about tomorrow. Now, I'm kind of taking that from the song, don't we? I don't know about tomorrow. James said that in James 4, last part of the chapter. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen next year or 5 years down the road or all that. We don't know if the pendulum is going to swing back or if it's just going to keep going the way it's going. But if it keeps going, and it does get bad, and we get to a point that we're having to deal with some things that they had to deal with in the first century, we've got to remember this too. No matter how bad it may get, heaven is going to be better. We've got to endure it. We've got to live with it. We've got to put up with it along the way. And as we said about the prophets are now comforted. Those prophets that stuck with it and did what they were supposed to do, they were now in a place of comfort. And that's where you will be someday if you stand up to the test. Does that make sense? Your thoughts here.
You know, it's not that God, you think about that a lot. I mean, people think, well, oh, I see, so God is so bad. If you don't do what he says, then he's just gonna, reject you, send you to hell. Well, no, he doesn't. You do that. He's told you what he said, and you pick what you want to do. But the blessings of living for God are so far much greater than just having the blessings that you have out here that everybody has. As Jesus said, it rains on the just and the unjust.
Yes.
But the peace of mind and I find that by living for Jesus, I don't encounter a lot of problems that I would had I lived after the world. So, it's not. And then too, you got to be a true believer in Jesus.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yes.
if you're just doing it, if it's just a routine, then heaven, you're like, well, I don't know about it.
You know, if Jesus is truly in your heart, and you do these things that we've talked about the last couple of weeks, all these blessings, and you follow that, you are a peacemaker, you're pure in heart, you're hungering and thirsting after righteousness, all these things that if you do that, your life will be better. You will have a better life. But it's kind of just dawned on me this last thing here, though, even though you're having a better life, there's some people who want to rain on your parade. They want to mess it up anyway. And you've got to endure through that and live through those things despite what other people may do. Because not all people are going to do these other things. They're going to be counteractive against it.
I think a lot of times we might get confused with spiritual blessings and material blessings.
Yes.
If you look at all of these things, there's nothing here that really is of material blessings. So, someone becomes a Christian, they think, oh, well, everything's going to be hunky-dory. It's going to be wonderful in my life. There's never going to be a problem that I'm going to have.
Yes.
And that's not what God says. There are consequences of the good that we do, and there's consequences of the bad that we do.
Yes.
And here, spiritually, is what he's talking about.
These are spiritual
And
blessings.
like you said in verse 12, he goes down this list, and then the ultimate goal is what?
Heaven.
It's heaven. So that's what we strive for. We're not promised, the best cars, the best house, or the best clothes, but he does promise us that we will have clothes and a plate and something to eat, and we'll have a place to stay.
Okay.
He promises those things.
Yes.
Those things are there. But he didn't he didn't say, it's going to be a Rolls Royce,
All right. Already in a few weeks, we're going to be over there in chapter 6 and verses 25 through 34. When we get there, remember all that. We're going to need to go through that again and understand, especially verse 33, when you seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. It comes back to play with these Beatitudes, spiritual blessings, the spiritual things we'll receive. Even though he is talking about physical things, he's just talking about the very needful things in our life, not the luxuries. abundantly.
And that, you can apply that materially, but
Yes.
it's abundance. It doesn't have to be a Rolls Royce.
Right.
If you've got a car that you can drive to work, that's, honestly, that's abundance.
Yes.
If you have more than you need, more than you have to survive, that's abundance. So we need to look at that too and see how blessed we really are.
Exactly.
In a material way too.
When I have to sit down and look and see what shoes, make sure I don't have one shoe, two different shoes on, because if I'm standing up, look down, I can't tell.
Yeah.
I gotta sit down and raise my feet up and make sure.
Yeah, let's see. I've got to,
I'd say I'm abundant.
yes,
I'm abundant, so things are good.
yes. You have to kind of get someone else to check, see what's going on down there sometimes around your ankles. Okay.
Talking about people too that didn't have, these people didn't have the blessings we've got today. And, I mean, they had life much harder than we had.
Oh, yes.
So, I think it's, sometimes we forget that.
Yes, the joy and peace that you have with your family and friends, that means a lot. Now, I'm going to throw a little surprise up here for you. We're going to go out of the Sermon on the Mount because this is really a part of it where Jesus spoke over in Luke chapter 6. He talked about blessings, but on another occasion, he was talking about some of those same things. And then in Luke 6, verse 24, he turned it around the other way. Verse 24, he says, "But woe unto you that are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe unto you that are full now, for you are hunger. You shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall mourn and weep. Woe unto you when all men shall speak well of you, for in the same manner did their fathers to the false prophets." He said, woe to the rich. You got the Rolls Royce that already wants to put you in and all that. You got these things, whatever they are, the riches of this earth, we're going to enjoy them just for the short time that they're here. Whether it is, that luxury car, or how many of you remember this, the Yugo? You have a Yugo, or I've seen some of these little electric cars that look kind of like a golf cart size. People, some of them are driving them around. Whatever it is, these things are temporary, and we have them to help us while we're here on this earth, but they're not going to help us any past our time on earth. Woe to you who are full, he said. I think he's not talking about so much eating, but you're satisfied with yourself. You are full, maybe full of yourself. You have a different way of judging things in this life, and you're satisfied, and I don't really need God. I'm taking care of myself pretty well. Everything's going pretty well. He said, whoa, if you're starting to think that way and you got that attitude. Woe to those who are laughing. Now, he's not talking about telling jokes. Already you and I are in big trouble if that's what he's talking about. We're back there cutting up all the time about silly things and funny things. But the thing is that eternity is not a laughing matter. And Jesus went back, we was talking about mocking someone, laughing at someone because of their Christianity, laughing at someone because of a stand that they're making for the Lord. You're thinking about those kinds of things. And that's what he's thinking about here. Eternity is not a laughing matter. It's something that is very serious that we need to think of along the way. And then, woe when everyone speaks well of you. Now, that's something I think we got to get a grip on. If everybody likes you, you might want to do some thinking about that. Why is it that everybody likes you? And so you say, well, I don't want anybody to dislike me. I don't either. I mean, seriously, It's not good when somebody dislikes you. Tammy, I know a bunch of kids that don't like me. Sometimes you got to tell the truth. You got to stand up and do that which is right. I know some grown-ups that don't like me because I will tell them the truth. Now, I try to tell them nicely. I try to talk to people respectfully. Paul said we need to bring the truth in love. And, I'm not perfect about that, but I do strive to do that. That's my goal, is that when I am trying to make a correction, I try to do it in a loving way, in a respectful way. But we got to understand these people that we talked about a little while ago. There's some, they're not going to have it at all. They're just not going to accept it. They're not going to accept any kind of truth. And because we believe the things we believe, certain things out of our beliefs, makes us hateful, makes us judgmental, makes us whatever. And they're not going to like us. So what do some people do? They just can't stand this idea. Well, I'll compromise. I'm sorry, I did not mean to hurt your feelings. Maybe you will be okay. And we do that, so they're going to like us. I can think of a couple of things here. Well, I forgot one of them already. I had two. One of them just popped out. Maybe it'll come back. But I think about like some of these TV hosts. You're a host of these TV shows. They are so likable, aren't they? They sit there and their guests today, they come in with this and they come in with that and all this, they represent this group or that group. Oh, that's just so wonderful. That's so good. And sometimes, I don't usually watch these shows, but every once in a while I'm just kind of scanning around, there's something there, and they're coming in and it's something that's not good. We're coming in to support this kind of a sinful thing that's going on. It's something that, God will not approve of. Oh, well, that's just so wonderful. I couldn't sit there and tell them that. But they got to do that because they got their image, don't they? They want everybody to watch their show. They got to be popular. So
That's because that impacts their revenue stream.
Pardon?
That impacts their revenue stream.
Revenue, yeah.
That's their pocketbook.
Exactly.
Us individually as Christians, this is warnings that when people reach a certain level in their professional life and their social life, that they're quite satisfied, they're very happy, and they become complacent. And I think that's what the warning is about. Don't have such abundance and be so satisfied with what you have that you forget God.
Yeah.
That you forget serving God and become so complacent with everything else because you've reached the top, so to speak.
Okay.
These warnings don't be that way. You can be all these things and still serve God and do it very effectively. But a lot of people don't
Yes.
because they become complacent.
John had something. I'm sorry.
I think it means if you assimilate too much into the world and its culture, bit by bit, everybody says, "Oh, you're just like us. You're wonderful. You just go along with everything. You're okay with everything. You're one of us. You're part of the world. It's very, very hard to go against people, like you said about compromise.
Yes.
It's at some point, like you said, you try to tell people nicely, and then eventually you're going to say, no, it's just wrong. And they say, well, I knew you were against us. You're not one of us.
Yes. The ultimate example is Jesus, isn't he? He was out there and he was preaching and teaching, and the Pharisees didn't like some of the things he said and did. And I think about John 6 in particular when he was saying that he was the bread of life, and when you got to eat the bread and you got to drink the blood and all this, and they were not able to comprehend exactly what he was saying. And you get down toward the end of the chapter, and it says that, Lord, this is a hard saying. Who can understand it? And he says a little bit more, and then from this point they would walk with him no more. So in the next verse, Jesus goes after him and says, oh, wait a minute, guys, wait a minute. Let's change this up a little bit. Is that what he did? No, he didn't. He had just told them the truth. And they chose not to follow that truth. They chose not to walk with him anymore. And we can find some other examples like that. Jesus didn't go running back after him going, well, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I didn't mean to make you angry. Let's talk about this, see if we can find a compromise. He didn't do that. And they didn't like him. Eventually, they went and nailed him up to a cross. And so, when everyone's speaking well of you, are we doing that? Are we being the people who's just breaking down and we're constantly compromising with sin, compromising with opinions of people that are saying things that's against the will of God and all that? You know, what is going on with that? Any more thoughts here?
It's hard. We want to be accepted.
Yes.
So we go along to get along.
The last one makes me think of politicians running for office.
Oh, yeah, that's a good example.
Goals that they try to reach.
Yes. Yes. How many of y'all remember Pat Paulson? Anybody remember Pat Paulson? I got a few people nodding their head, just very few. He was actually a comedian, and he was on the TV show The Smothers Brothers. Half of you don't even remember that. 1968, just as a joke on the show, he started running for president. And he'd go out, he'd go on the show and he'd make these crazy comments and thoughts and all. It was just, it was comedy, is what it was supposed to be. It was political comedy. His name ended up on several ballots around the country and people voted for him. and you know, they got clips of him. You can go back and catch this if you want to check on DVD or something. But he'd go to one town and he's for it. I'm all for it, you know. I'm for this, whatever it is. And then he goes to the other town, and it's the same subject. I'm against it. I'm against it. You know? And he was out there trying to get his votes, you know, as he was running for president. And he was just making fun of the candidates, is all he was doing. And yet people started voting for him. And so that's, you know, that's everybody wants to speak well. He wants everybody to speak well of him. Okay, well, I tell you. We do have 3 or 4 more minutes, but we're going to just end it here because this is the end of this lesson. I don't want to start with something just for 2 minutes because we got Brother Spivey going to be standing up here next week, Lord willing. And so we'll hear a good lesson from him, I know. And when we come back in 2 weeks, we'll talk about being the light of the world and the salt of the earth and move on for the things that take place after that. So appreciate your comments today. Good discussion as always. If you are watching us online, we're going to be back at about 10 minutes till 10, and we're going to have a worship service at that time. We hope you'll join us. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day.